Right, the next speaker, I'm delighted that he's come back. He has flown all the way from Los Angeles with 2 cracked ribs. Please give a very warm and crazy Music Matters welcome to Ralph Simon, but the man with the cracked ribs, Mr. Rob Wells.
Rob,
so we're doing this standing up, Ralph.
How did you crack your ribs? We need another chair. Oh, there we are. We should be doing it standing up because this is about energy.
We need a
and
dance
ladies and
routine.
gentlemen, those of you who don't know Rob, let me just tell you, Rob is the president of all digital everything for the Universal Music Group, the largest music company in the world. And Rob is in a position where he has a balcony view, but very hands-on view of exactly what is going on a global basis for all things digital with Universal Music. So Rob, great to have you here at Music Matters. I know you're a regular at Music Matters. You always like Music Matters. And the reason is because you can come here and really get a very, very good sense of Asia, where you have a lot of activity.
Yeah, I think I've been here on a regular basis for the last 6-7 years. The last time I was on stage was with a bottle of Jack Daniels, which was very entertaining.
With Jack?
Indeed, Uncle Jack. But yeah, I mean, visiting the region is always an education. Always new stuff going on, always new services going live. Our regional team, Universal's regional team, is very aggressive in the business development space, the digital space. You know, we have new deals in place with Smart, the operator in the Philippines. There's a deal that we've done recently in Vietnam with Zing, which is similar to what we did in South Korea with Soribada a few years back.
So what kind of deal would that be with Zing?
Well, that's essentially legitimizing an existing non-paid-for service. So, and again, it's the strategy we've adopted in a large number of markets where there is an incumbent platform where consumers are not paying for music, is rather than just go after them through litigation, we'll go after them through a legal means by licensing them. So, and we did this with Soribada, I think it was probably 7, 8 years ago. And
so give us an idea for those that in the audience that are, and those watching online are not quite understanding this. Effectively, to try and really overcome the problem of piracy unlimited by providing something for free. It's a freemium model that then gets people in a legal basis or alternatively built in as a service into the telco.
Correct. I mean, the first thing you need to do is to legitimize the platform,
right,
by granting them a license, and then you empower the service to roll out and achieve scale through their own marketing channels, through our direct marketing channels, through bundled services with operators in a market or throughout a region. And some of the big success stories we've seen with bundled services include what's been done with the cricket service Move Music in the US, which has been phenomenally successful.
That's Move, M-U-V-E, started in America, going to the lowest economic groupings in the United States, now launching in Brazil.
With Tim, correct.
Right.
And the success story in the US has been phenomenal. I think they currently still have more paying subscribers on the Move Music service in the US than there is currently on Spotify in the US.
That's amazing.
And they're from a very different demographic, so they happily coexist. And you know, the more colour in a market when it comes to a variety of different services, the better. Another great bundled service in the UK currently with O2, the Telefonica platform, service called Music Cubed. And that's a much different proposition. It's a top 40 single subscription for £1 a week, bundled into your tariff. So there's all this. You know, the first step is to legitimize a platform and license a partner, and then we encourage them to go out and expand the horizons and license themselves to as many different partners as possible.
So what's interesting about this, and hearing you talk about this, and I want to get into some examples about Asia specifically in a second, relating to subscription and streaming. But before that, what is really interesting just in what you've just said is that it seems Universal, sometimes very unfairly tarred with the brush of being a big major. In actual fact, a big part of your credo now is innovation, innovation in A&R, innovation in I&R, that's innovation and repertoire.
I like it.
You like it?
Very good.
Innovation and artist development, how important are those in terms of Asia for Universal?
Immensely important. I think, I think Universal, despite being probably accurately tarred with the brush of being a big major, Ralph, because we are. There's no denying that.
No, but there's nothing wrong with being a big major if you're developing artists.
Especially if you're nimble and fleet of foot, you can still be large and still be innovative. And you know, Universal's prided itself historically of signing and developing talent both internationally and domestically, and also encouraging new legitimate ways for consumers to enjoy music. And you know, I think of all the major labels, we've probably been the most forward-thinking and avant-garde in that regard. And you know, when it comes to competition now, I don't see our competition as coming from other major labels. I see our competition coming from other entertainment sectors vying for the single most priceless commodity that currently exists: consumer attention.
Time and consumer attention, exactly. So, Rob, on this whole question of looking at these new models that you're developing, particularly with regard to Asia, one of the things I wanted to just ask if you can give some comments on, I'm going to give you a few categories, particularly as they relate to...
It's like a quiz show.
It is a quiz show. As it relates to subscription and streaming, I'm going to give you a few categories. Just tell me what developments you've seen in Asia with regard to these. So, for example, it's just been announced that Google have developed this all-access music service, and of course it's only in the US, and even though they are have a locker service in 13 countries all over the world, the Google Music service, all access, is really only in the US at this particular point, but no doubt they'll roll out sooner. But how about these things? Recommendations, is that now part of the mechanics that you use, or recommendations within these new services?
Yeah, I mean all of these criteria are important.
Right.
But they're all at different levels of importance. I think recommendations and gifting of tracks, sharing of playlists, all very critical for a subscription or streaming service that's looking to reach critical mass.
List of top albums and top tracks?
Essential. You know, I think we're the only industry in the world that has a week-by-week performance metric in charts, both internationally and domestically. You know, it's important. Consumers are used to the chart-based.
Yeah, you don't have a liquor company saying we've sold so many bottles of beer this week.
Correct.
Okay. How about genre pages and subgenres? In other words, certain styles. That's an important element.
Definitely. I mean, so, I think one of the areas for growth when it comes to subscription is definitely along the lines of potentially genre-based subscription services. One of the most poorly served demographics or consumer groups in the digital space at the moment is those consumers that listen to classic and jazz. So I'm just waiting for a high-end, high-quality audio streaming service just for the classical consumer.
Oh, so, for example, in Japan, which traditionally has had a very strong jazz sales base, having an audio stream, a higher-level audio, clearly for that kind of consumer, the older consumer with perhaps more money to spend than
more money, more time, sure.
Okay. The next one would be new releases, obviously key factor for discovery and
essential.
Spreading, essential.
If a consumer's paying a monthly fee for a subscription service, they're not going to be that impressed if all the new hits aren't on it.
Okay. How about featured playlists?
I think this is a kind of yes, I think so. I think featured playlists, how consumers discover music, and the whole curation debate is very interesting. You know, either algorithmically or humanly chosen. I think it's, you know, definitely it's interesting how this is going to evolve. And you have the sort of like the purely algorithm-driven services like Pandora, and there's kind of more interest in more human creation of tentpole playlists. I think that's definitely going to be something that's going to be some growth in that space.
Now, when you mention curation, this is really important because the key feature of A&R as well as I&R, and in terms of curation and looking at the different territories in Asia, colloquial content and colloquial context. This is really important. What happens in Tagalog doesn't necessarily happen in Bahasa, doesn't necessarily happen in Japan or Korea. Give us your sense of local content.
Yeah, I think it's without a shadow of a doubt, it's one of the most important things that will differentiate services. And you know, a domestic roster of repertoire is essential for any platform looking to go live throughout Asia. I mean, I learned long ago that Asia isn't like, you know, one big amorphous mass of markets. It's very complex, very unique, very broken down. It's much similar to Europe rather than just Asia. And I think, one of the things that we've spent a lot of time over the past few years educating some of the big platforms is that they have to focus on collecting and bringing in domestic repertoire.
So how important is this whole notion of finding new and developing new domestic repertoire within the Universal team?
It's immensely important. I think, I think one of the key strengths for the successful record company over the next 10 to 15 years is signing and developing domestic acts, without a shadow of a doubt. It's always been important to UMG. I think it's increasingly important, alongside the superstar hits. And I think what we're going to find as well is, and I've said this on the record previously, we're going to find that there will be more superstar global artists that will break from a much wider range of markets around the world.
So last night here in this room, there was a fantastic collection, about 800 kids from FanFest, clearly seeing the YouTube phenomenon developing. What's your view on this whole notion of the kind of people's YouTube, finding artists, developing them? I mean, of course, Universal really distinguished itself by getting a huge hit worldwide outside of Korea with Gangnam Style and Psy. So you took a Korean single, first time ever in the history of the record business, to that level. Some people say, well, the dance happened, it's Psy, Gangnam Style. But in truth, it doesn't work without really working it. So this YouTube phenomenon, are you finding that this is aiding some of these new services that you're trying to develop?
I mean, YouTube as a whole it's going to be fascinating to see how YouTube develops. And how it will evolve into being, into fulfilling the promise that it currently has. Over 1 billion people touch the platform on a monthly basis.
1 billion.
And that's a very big funnel, were they to launch a legitimate premium subscription offer.
Right.
And that's, I think we are looking forward to a future where YouTube will be a much bigger partner for the global music business. And I think, what we saw last night, the FanFest thing was incredible. The level of fervour was unbelievable. And they're following, I think it's also fascinating how YouTube have done a really good job of profiling the success of each individual video on their service. The play count thing is, again, back to the point we made earlier about it being very public domain and very public data. I think YouTube will be not just a source of revenue for us moving forwards, but also a huge source of new talent as well.
And new talent from different markets.
Absolutely.
So let's have a look at another issue, song skipping in a subscription or a streaming service, where you can skip songs or a certain number of songs. There are some variations with some of the big providers.
Yeah, in the US, there are limitations. If a service is DMCA compliant, then there's some things that the consumers are not allowed to do.
Right.
I think the consumers are becoming way more sophisticated than just that.
Right.
And I think consumers will, the desire will be that they can move forwards and backwards in playlists and see what's coming up.
What about the limitations of catalogue and charts from territory to territory? Are you finding, for example, if you're seeing, say, in Vietnam, where there's a big, the new service you've launched there, how easy is it to migrate to other Asian markets? You speak about all these different territories in Asia, but do you think that we're going to be seeing some of these more global kind of spreads where an act like, let's say, these young ladies that performed just before we came on, whether it's K-pop or whether it's a modern version of the Spice Girls, what are some of the things that leads to sudden spread? Is it a hit song, the core of what the music business is all about?
It's just about the hits.
The hits.
It always has been and always will be about hit records. Everything else is just colour, but that remains constant.
The song, the lyric, just the performance, the production.
It's about the hits. And the Gangnam Style thing, sure, it was a phenomena, but it started off with a really catchy tune. It was a great record.
And a great video.
Absolutely.
So obviously video is also now clearly important to yourselves because people are screenagers.
Ralph, you drop these lyrical bombs. It's most entertaining.
How many people here in this room are screenagers? Everybody, I would assume. How many of you use your phone and an iPad or a tablet and watch television and maybe even do it while you're inside a cinema? So everybody is a screenager, and this is obviously affecting the way music is made and viewed.
Absolutely. Absolutely, 100%. Again, back to the point I made earlier, this is all about attention and vying for consumers' attention. And if you can get the cut through, then you can have a hit. but it's about attention. Again, the competition for us now is I don't believe it's no longer as easy as just saying it's Sony and Warner's. It's much more complex. It's Rovio, it's EA, it's Activision, it's HBO. It's all about attention.
All about attention. So about 9 months ago, in fact last year at Music Matters, we were looking at the imminent arrival of iTunes in Asia. So clearly, iTunes has made an impact on an international basis, but give us some kind of idea from where you're sitting in terms of doing a lot of business with that particular retailer, who are becoming, in a sense, one of the first major global retailers. But tell us, in a sense, of how you've seen that impact in Asia.
Yeah, I think, the evolution of iTunes, they're celebrating their 10-year anniversary this year. And the evolution of iTunes within the last 2 years has been very significant. And for the first time ever, at some point over the course of the next 12, 18 months, we will have a truly global retail partner that we've never had as an industry. And that's very significant. And I think where iTunes lead, others will follow. Some more successfully than others. Some of these big tech companies, they're not engineered the same way that Apple was engineered. Bearing in mind when Apple decided to move into the content space, that directive came from Steve Jobs. It was Steve that flew around the world and cut the deals with the major labels. And I think some of the Apple competitors will struggle to execute a solid content strategy because they're coming from a different place. But I think some will definitely make it work. And I think the global high street within the next 3 to 5 years will look very similar to a domestic high street 10 or 15 years ago, when there were kind of 5 or 6, 7 key players. And they'll be the same, but on a global basis. But
they'd also have local variations. So, for example, give us a sense, Baidu, important China, QQ, important Chinese operation. Tencent, QQ.
Absolutely. But I mean, there's a lot of great work going on in the PRC right now. The Baidu deal that was done was a significant deal. It was a benchmark deal. We have a large
Why
number
do you say it's a benchmark deal?
Well, it was to the point I made at the top of the conversation. It was turning a kind of a non-legit service legit. And I think that's put the marker in the sand. I think there's a lot more other services who offer free music that are coming up and going, that's something that's interesting to us. I also think from a cultural basis, I think the Chinese government is very interested in proving that they can hold their own on a global basis when it comes to the delivery of superstar acts and superstar motion pictures and superstar software and tech companies. I think they're very keen to be seen to be able to compete on a global basis when it comes to intellectual property. And I think a lot of the movement in China is all about legitimizing the platforms through which consumers can consume, driving some VC and PE money into these platforms, and from there we'll start to see the evolution of the music economy even faster within the PRC that will start to throw up more and more great acts.
It's funny you should say that, because Johnny Wright, the manager of Justin Timberlake, Backstreet Boys, Britney Spears, many others, this morning when he arrived at the airport was talking about how he wants to find a Chinese act and break them in America.
I think it's an inevitability, Ralph, and I really hope I wish Johnny the best of luck with that.
Right. So when you talk about some of these, the high street as you refer to it, the main shopping street, and you've got iTunes, you've got Baidu, Deezer, now a French company.
Possibly.
Give me an example of some of these companies that you think are doing that in Asia.
Well, I think, just...
Different countries.
Yeah, I think just because of the footprint, I mean, let's go from an international basis. iTunes are here. Right. They're doing great things. Yep. I think they will continue to do good things, and their service will be tweaked, and there'll be more stuff that their product roadmap is inevitably going to be impressive. Right. Google, the YouTube platform is way too big to ignore. Way too big. I think YouTube is definitely positioning itself as the new TV. I think they'll be on the list.
New radio, in a sense.
Indeed. They'll be on the list. I think there'll be 1 or 2 of the startups, whether it's Spotify or Deezer, we'll see. I think there may even be a brand X in the list, which, is probably being generated in somebody's bedroom right now, which will
like
go on to do
Beats,
great
which
things.
is partly owned by HTC in Taiwan and their Daisy service.
Absolutely. You know, that's an interesting proposition coming from Jimmy Iovine. So
Jimmy Iovine, who heads up Interscope, and the fellow producing or executive producing, Priyanka Chopra, the Bollywood star that's just done a duet for you guys with Pitbull.
Absolutely right.
Amazing.
It's great. The records.
So that's good. India and Pitbull, I mean, that's not barking up the wrong tree. Not too bad. Come on, come on, come on.
Don't encourage him. Don't encourage him.
No, but that's not a bad idea.
Very
Priyanka
good.
Chopra and Pitbull.
Absolutely.
Great idea of meshing.
Absolutely.
It's like the mashup of international continental music
Absolutely.
style.
Absolutely. So, you know, and this kind of diversity, this cultural diversity, is we're going to see more and more of these things.
So the other thing is about information to artists about what songs are being played. Like, for example, Spotify have just announced they're letting more data so that managers and artists and labels just understand what the public are going for. Trending, really. It's like Twitter trending, but trending to see which songs are starting to connect. It's what radio always did.
Yeah, I think the technology allows us a real level of visibility into the activity of consumers on these platforms.
Right.
And you know, if you have the systems, and we've invested quite heavily, Universal's invested quite heavily in this area, big data is really proving its worth now. And you know, I share this with my team within UMG. I have a vision of a band coming off the stage at Coachella or Glastonbury or an event like this, going backstage, opening up a laptop or booting up an app on an iPhone or a tablet, and seeing exactly what their performance has done to their Spotify streams or their sales on iTunes or their views on Vivo. And that is the immediacy of technology, and that's what should be happening and what we're aiming to be able to empower our artists with in the not too distant future.
Now, this obviously has got a big impact for mobile because there's such a huge mobile usage in Asia. Give us your view on mobile, quickly.
Yeah, I think mobile, you know, the model that we've employed with mobile being used to encourage consumers to pay for premium subscription services, we have to rethink that, because there are some markets in Asia where, you know, 80 to 90% of views on a service like YouTube are already coming from mobile phones. So there will be an element of mobile free in the music industry future very soon.
But mobile is leading to increased consumption of music.
100%.
And that's a very, very big vector for you going forward.
Huge. You know, I think there's 900 million people around the world with Android devices now.
900 million.
I think it's something that you'll have to check.
It's close to a billion, you're right.
Check with a Google guy. Right. You know, we know that a lot of people buying music from the iTunes store are buying music from mobile devices. So, you know, and a lot of these markets are going to jump straight to mobile. So, and that's very exciting for us, because it just unlocks a huge new demographic and huge new populations of consumers.
And that also drives your innovation, which is a big thing. I mean, to show the importance, the priority of innovation within Universal, your office in Santa Monica in California is right next door to Lucian Granger's office, who's the head of Universal. So clearly there must be some important priority about you and Lucian work very, very closely together, because you see mobile as a very important driver for new artists, artist development, the whole innovation thing that you guys are really set on.
Absolutely. He plays his music way too loud, by the way. But we're arm in arm when it comes to the innovative new platforms that we have. We just, you know, he ran an innovation forum in LA a few months back, hugely successful. David Cameron, the
Prime Minister of Britain,
he dialed in and participated
on Skype.
Absolutely. It was amazing, incredible. Loads of new startups there, real good vibe in the room. It was great, really good.
So we've got some very good news to announce here at Music Matters, really important, because we've just heard from Los Angeles that you have just been appointed to the main board of Universal. This is a great, great signal, and we thought we'd give you a little bit of a surprise. Lewis Quinn, where's Lewis Quinn? With a special surprise for Rob Wells. Where's Lewis? Very good. Let's bring out that big bottle of champagne.
Oh my God. Thank you very much.
Rob, we just wanted to say thank you, Rob. So I wanted to drink a toast to you. You've been appointed to the main board.
Cheers, Ralph.
That's this main board of 5 wise people on the Universal Board for governing the global music interests of Universal. We got you this gift, which is not a Magnum, not a Jeroboam, it's a Nebuchadnezzar, that's what that bottle is called, but especially for you. Ladies and gentlemen, give him a big hand. He's been a new director of the company.
Thanks, Ralph.
We won't give you the bottle now. That you can have this afternoon. You can share that with Jasper Donat.
Well, I think what we'll probably do is, how about we put it on a table outside and everyone can have a glass of champagne.
Very good, and we'll charge, we'll make sure that, exactly, that'll be, Singtel can pay for it, very good. Make sure we keep it. So, Rob, we've just had very brief time to go through some of these things, but clearly the immediacy of data, the importance of mobile, the importance of streaming and subscription, these are all exciting new avenues in which the music business is moving. When we said a couple of years ago, the future is so bright, we've got to wear shades, now this is true more than ever. And in Asia more than ever.
Absolutely. I think, Asia for us, for the last 6 years has been a real petri dish of experimentation, and it's really coming into its own. The fact that iTunes is now live here, there'll be more services rolling out here, there'll be great growth from domestic services here, it's infectious. Around the world, there's great stuff we've got going on in Africa with our own service, which we've developed with Samsung called the Clique. There's great stuff going on in Latin America and Central America, good stuff going on in Eastern Europe. It's just, the music industry is, without a question, starting to inflect.
We've passed the bottom. We're moving into a zone where we're going to see an increase of over 50% of digital. So there's market hope for Asia. All of the depression about piracy, all of the new innovation is really, and stuff that you're pioneering, is leading to new opportunity in business.
Absolutely.
And new opportunity for creatives, new opportunity for artists.
Fresh revenue for artists, fresh platforms to expose new bands, new acts to break through on a global basis. The story's really good, very compelling.
Sounds like a real record company.
Feels like it.
So one final point before we close, because we're very close to our time, and that is discovery. I know discovery is a key issue in all the things we've spoken about in this short little tete-a-tete, but discovery, how important is that to what you build into your mechanism?
There are two key things for us whenever we license a new service. One is obviously the revenue, because we have to keep the lights on for the corporation. And two is how the platform will help consumers discover new bands. They're the two key things, pivotal things. And I think any new service that we license, it's all about discovery. Even the services that are, dialed down, the pound a week top 40 subscription services, there's still a discovery element in those as well. So discovery is very key, definitely.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, you've heard it from the horse's mouth. Well, not exactly the horse, the stallion's mouth. You've heard lots of great stuff about what Rob is doing. It's interesting to hear about A&R and I&R and the way that the music business, particularly in Asia, is poised to see some tremendous growth. Please, a big round of applause. Rob, thanks so much for coming all the way to Singapore. Great to have you here with us.
Good to see you.
That's it. Thank you. Jasper?
Ladies and gentlemen, the man with the cracked ribs and Ralph Simon.